Once again, would like to lead off today's video by saying a big thank you to everyone who has joined us over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel, where it's only $1 per month. That's right, not per week, not per video, per month, and even less if you sign up for an entire year. We've been able to partner with Vimeo and take the gloves off, so to speak. We do between 3 and 5 videos over there per month, and they're usually anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. And it's the topics we need to discussed in a way that only adults can. People of a certain age, people that aren't snowflakes, people that want to get down to the nitty-gritty of what we're going to need to know and be able to talk about to survive what's coming. Because things are not getting easier. I don't know about you, but I'm looking at my neighbors and I'm looking at other platforms and other creators on this platform, and from what I'm getting, things are getting rough. And if we can't talk to each other in a real way without self-censoring, I think we're going to be in trouble. So join us, won't you? Only $1 per month, and fully refundable up to 90 days. That means you could literally watch a dozen videos over there over the next 3 months and then get your money back. If it wasn't for you, if it's too adult for you or too gritty for you, that's understandable. No problem. See, psychological operations sometimes can be very subtle, just done over long periods of time. Like the idea of, like the idea of self-censoring in just little ways. I'm sure many people remember back in 2017 when all the platforms dropped the hammer. Well, now we're 5-6 years down the road, and people are not saying certain things and not showing certain things simply because they're so fearful. They've self-censored. They no longer have to fight about it. So much so that these platforms are now having to scrape to find things to censor because so many people are just doing it on their own. Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about that topic, self-censoring. I've talked about what may happen in a grid down, power down scenario when there's no more courts, no more 911, and all of the tools that people were using to distract themselves go away. The stress levels go up, the angst. There's going to be one place that people will turn and nobody wants to talk about it. Some have said, Florida Maquis, why are you talking about it? Well, because nobody else will. And until somebody else does, we're going to continue. Now, we also talked about this topic. Ammunition is currency. And there's a specific dynamic to this that I think is going to make people scratch their heads a little bit. Because when you take something that's actually useful in the real world and begin using it as a currency and throw currency rules on it, everything goes haywire. Now, the example that we used, you have a bunch of guys in a militia, and they've got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition between them. All sorts of different kinds, all stored in these giant bins. But all of a sudden, these are more than just things to plink down range at pop cans. They're now currency. And they can be used to purchase things in the new post-apocalyptic world. They can be used to purchase just about anything. And so, one night, perhaps later on, guy in the group, the weak link, so to speak, he gets himself an idea in his head. See, the last time he was at the trading post, there was this pretty thing, and boy, I'll bet if he'd have had enough rounds of ammunition to trade, he could have had one heck of a night. So he starts skimming, keeping a pocket full here, a pocket full there. And this is the good stuff. This is the military-grade ammunition. And before you know it, a few other people figure it out, and all of a sudden you've got a problem in your unit. Now, some people said, okay, Florida Maquis, we buy that. That could happen. How can we fix that? Well, I said, perhaps, maybe you should introduce a female into the higher ranks of your unit and have her be in charge directly of the weapons and ammunition. Somebody to keep an eye on that. Somebody who wouldn't fall for that, or somebody who could spot it right away. See, that's the fix. Some people say, Florida Maquis, you show problems, but no answers. No, this would be my answer. Absolutely. Because they wouldn't fall for it. Now, here's where things get even weirder. Normal currency that we use on a regular basis has no value in and of itself in the real world. But a rifle round used properly could take an imminent threat, like, for example, you folks way up north. This is a menace. If you were out in a tactical situation, this is a menace. You could take something that's a menace and turn it into a ton of food to last you for a very long time. That's a very useful tool. That's a very useful thing in and of itself. But then if you're also using it as a currency, there's a bit of a problem. And I'm using this image from way back, long time ago, 2012 or something like that. The negotiations back during, I think it was season 2 or 3 of The Walking Dead between the governor and Rick. If you had tons and tons of high-powered rifle rounds, you wouldn't want anybody to know. Meaning you would want your opponent across the negotiating table to believe you were weaker than what you are. Now, that's usually the opposite. Most people want to negotiate from a position of strength. Here, you would want your enemy to think you had less. Why? Because you don't want to make yourself a target. See, this guy running around, blowing off rounds with this big, huge handgun, was just telegraphing that he had plenty more stored up somewhere else. A smart person wouldn't have confronted him. They would have just followed him quietly at a distance. Where's his camp? How many people are in his camp? Let's get a layout of that camp. Where do you think he's storing all that ammunition? See, if you communicate that, you'll make yourself a target. Because it's not just currency. It's a tool. And so you'd have to approach things very, very differently. There's a game out there, pardon me, that covers this really well. It's called Metro, and this is a screenshot from this game called Metro. It's a post-apocalyptic survival game where ammunition actually is currency. You have just acquired some military-grade cartridges. The quality and stopping power of these pre-apocalypse cartridges give them a very high value. Military-grade ammo can be used as currency to buy weapons and items from shops. It can also be exchanged for other ammo types, meaning like reloads. Scarce and precious military-grade cartridges can be identified by their pristine condition and shiny metal casing. Now, I'll give you this article you can read, but it talks about how the primary focus of the game, once you start encountering ammunition for weapons, for ballistic weapons, it changes because there's a limited amount. It's called Metro, and then there's a sequel called Metro Exodus. How after you encounter this, you really want to begin to hoard the ammunition instead of using it. You see, you want to find the garbage ammunition and use that for your firefights. But the good ammunition, the stuff that you can use for food and water and other weapons and shelter, all that, you don't use that, even though it's more powerful. Even though you can kill quicker with it, you have to think about every round that you use. You're like, okay, that's 5 pounds of food, downrange. That's medical supplies, boom, gone, downrange. I no longer have the ability to buy this. So you just don't go crazy blowing off rounds everywhere. So it's an interesting game in the sense that it doesn't encourage you to be wasteful like most games do. So anyway, also here at the 10-minute mark, I want to apologize for missing out yesterday. Bullet points, by the way. Metro Series Bullet Economy. This is the game. This will give you something to look for. So I wanted to kind of do a double up video today to talk about a little bit more at length about my thinking about how the relationships between men and women are going to be a much bigger deal and why it's so much more important to talk about than people think. Now, I'm sure a lot of you would agree with this statement. This is my Father's world. This is our Father's world. And He created it. He created Adam. Created every fish in the sea, every animal, every plant, and gave Adam dominion over them. You would think it would have been a paradise. And if Adam were lonely, why did God not create a whole bunch of other dudes to hang out with? Thousands and thousands of men, perhaps, to put at his disposal to go find things to entertain him. But the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Now, men can have helpers. Men can have assistants that aren't necessarily women. Can they not? You see, this is where I get this impression, and tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading my audience wrong here. I get this impression that there are people out there that would have second-guessed God here. That when God saw man and man was alone, and God said, it's not good that he's alone, that they would have said, well, wait a minute, God, hold on. We're modern 21st century folks here. We're pretty smart. Here's what you should do before you consider the whole woman thing. You should create these great libraries full of books and scribes and men working in them so that Adam, when he's lonely, can go find a book to read on any subject imaginable: physics, biology, chemistry, astronomy, architecture, medical knowledge. And he can read and he can become a better version of himself because he's so much smarter now. And like you said, you can have men at his disposal. Create a bunch of men from the earth. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of an issue in the other room. But you could have created all of this first and given Adam this huge library of things to occupy his time. But would he have still been lonely? The entire library at Alexandria could have kept him busy for a lifetime. Why didn't God do this for Adam instead and make him the most intelligent, well-read man on earth? Given that he had dominion over the planet and all of the animals, perhaps reading about those animals and what they may or may not evolve into. Some might say, you know what? All he needs is companionship, God. Before you do the whole woman thing, why don't we, like I said, create a bunch of other men, and they can have feasts, and they can plant huge orchards and gardens. And every night you can have this huge, bountiful feast where men are telling jokes and laughing and getting together and doing what guys do. And he will feel entertained, and he'll have companionship. No need for creating a woman. I mean, just think how happy he'll be with figs and dates and apples and carrots and, all of this wonderful bounty. In fact, you can have men that create instruments and songs can be sung. Poetry can be written. Art can be created. So many other things. to keep him from being lonely? What of King Solomon? 4.5 tons of gold per year, 6,000 kilos of wheat per day, 12,000 kilos of beef per day, 4,000 kilos of other meats. All of this could have been granted to Adam to keep him from being lonely. But what did God actually do? God created a woman. And history is now replete with the fascination that men have for the opposite sex. Some have said it's an Achilles and a weakness, and that's a good argument. It has been. This is Solomon, the Queen of Sheba. Samson and Delilah. David and Bathsheba. Eve beguiled. Being thrown out of the garden. All of this. Some would say Florida Maquis, shouldn't God have made a better choice? Shouldn't God have made a better choice? There are so many ways that he could have kept Adam from being alone. Games and feasts and music and art and literature. And why was not an army just created of tens of thousands of other men? Why? Because there's something about a woman that a man cannot explain. No matter how much he tries, that companionship, sometimes just that moment. You can have the worst day ever. You can get up and it can be shit from sunrise all the way to that evening. And you can go someplace and walk in and sit down and order a beer, and the beer might be stale. But if it's a pretty girl that brings it and she smells good, it's not a bad day. It's just not a bad day. And God knew this. See, this is where sometimes I think people have gone off the track. And Shakespeare had this right. A loaf of bread, a jug of wine, and thou. And let the world outside just go to hell and disappear. It's kind of the one thing that pirates get right in their world. They boil it down to the very minimalist thing. They don't care about books. They don't care about music. Oh, they'll sing a sea shanty once in a while. But for pirates, they just want to be left alone. Most of them. And have somebody to warm to snuggle up to at night. You see, and that's where we're headed. That's what I think a lot of people are missing with grid down, power down, no internet, high stress, just getting by day to day. People are going to return to where they have always gone during times like that. And it won't be running firefights over 25 pounds of dried potato flakes. It's just not going to be the case. Sorry about that. Everything's going to change. But it's going to go back to something, not forward to something new. People are going to go, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Of course, maybe I'm wrong. Are you one of these people that think that God was wrong when he saw a man was alone? Yeah, that's right, Mucky. God should have just created books. That would have kept him from being alone. Yeah, just a whole bunch of other guys with all sorts of talents and skills and abilities to tell jokes and laugh and sing. Would that have got the job done? I think you know the answer. And I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.